back here if you can. Can you move them? Can you move them? Okay, try and bring them back here. Remember to stop the bleeding.
MACV SOG was a top secret Black Ops unit during the Vietnam War. The missions they went on were so unbelievably dangerous that the unit had a 100% casualty rate. MACV SOG specialized in doing things the US military wasn't supposed to do during the Vietnam War. Because of this, they never carried anything that could connect them to the US military. Their weapons had the serial numbers scratched off, and their uniforms had no ranks or flags. The unit was mostly composed of US Navy SEALs and Green Berets. Approximately 2.7 million American service members deployed to Vietnam, but only 600 of them ever served in MACV SOG. And all 600 of those brave men contributed to that 100% casualty rate statistic. But even with an extremely high casualty rate across the board, there was one specific, highly classified mission that shook MACV SOG to its core. Codename Oscar 8. Oscar 8 was the North Vietnamese 559th Transportation Group's forward headquarters. It was also the Ho Chi Minh Trails Control Center and contained the largest NVA storage facility outside of North Vietnam. Oscar 8 was heavily defended by numerous anti-aircraft artillery guns of all sizes that were not only stationed on the ground but also mounted on platforms in the trees and were expertly camouflaged. Oscar 8 also favored the enemy because the only suitable landing zones were located in a wide bowl surrounded by jungle-covered high ground overlooking the bowl area. And like I said, the jungle surrounding the bowl was containing numerous anti-air artillery guns as well as bunkered infantry. But US commanders had received intelligence that North Vietnam's top general was currently visiting the area, and they didn't know how long he would be there, so a plan was very quickly created to kill or preferably capture the general. And the US commanders then gave that mission to MACV SOG. The MACV SOG hatchet force that received this mission was a company-sized element that specialized in large-scale raids and ambushes. It was composed of a few special forces operators and several dozen local mercenary troops, totaling about 100 commandos. The game plan was for several B-52 Stratofortress bombers to work the target before the SOG commandos landed. The hatchet force would then sweep the target area after the B-52 bombers had flattened it to do a little battle damage assessment, kill any survivors, and destroy any equipment, and hopefully kill or capture the general. The timeline for this game plan was for the B-52 bombers to hit the area at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and then 1 hour later at 7 a.m. the hatchet force would land and begin their operation, and then hopefully everyone would be back out and at base by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. To support the hatchet force, SOG headquarters put on standby several Air Force, Marine, and even Navy fixed and rotary wing squadrons. All in all, there were 3 CH-46 C-9 helicopters to carry in the hatchet force, 4 UH-1 Huey gunships for close air support, 2 1E Sky Raider aircraft for close air support, 4 F-4C Phantom fighter jets for close air support, 2 H-34 choppers for combat search and rescue, and 2 forward observer aircraft to coordinate tactical air support. As the sun began to rise on June 3rd, 1967, 9 B-52 bombers dropped a total of 945 unguided, high-explosive bombs and more than 236 tons of ammunition on the North Vietnamese headquarters and the adjoining positions. Once the B-52 bombers finished their runs, they made one last pass over the area to admire their handiwork. But what they saw was an absolute nightmare. An overwhelming amount of NVA troops were pouring in from deep within the jungle and putting out the fires and manning their anti-air guns. Very quickly, the B-52 bombers came under heavy enemy fire and were forced to flee the area as fast as possible. They very quickly sent out a transmission to the hatchet force telling them to scratch the infill because the area was crawling with pissed off NVA. But it was too late. The transmission didn't make it in time. It's unclear how exactly the NVA managed to escape the B-52 bombers, but somehow they managed to get deep enough into the jungle to take cover, and all they had to do then was just wait it out. But the hatchet force was fully expecting to roll in on a completely devastated enemy base with very minimal resistance. Instead, what they rolled up on was a well-defended and fully ready enemy position. And as soon as they arrived on target, the first two CH-46 Sea Knight helicopters full of MACV SOG operators were shot down, along with two of the UH-1 Huey gunships that were providing close air support. And an H-34 chopper attempting to rescue was also shot down immediately upon arrival. Within minutes of them arriving on target, all 100 commandos of the hatchet force were stranded in the middle of the headquarters. Thankfully, the commandos were able to find cover within the bomb craters created by the B-52 bombers. But even with the cover provided by the bomb craters, they were stranded in the middle of an open field inside the enemy's headquarters, surrounded by countless numbers of NVA troops who were heavily armed and doing their absolute best to throw frag grenades into the bomb craters. Meanwhile, a pair of F-4 Phantom jets came in low to cover the survivors, but they also took heavy anti-aircraft fire. One of the Phantom jets was quickly shot down and the other was forced to leave the area. A pair of A-1E Sky Raiders then came in to provide close air support, but they too received overwhelming anti-aircraft fire and one of them crashed. The SOG commandos were split up into two different bomb craters right next to each other, and they were under heavy fire from the enemy on the ground. So the American team leader requested napalm and cluster bombs to be dropped within 100 feet of their perimeter. Meanwhile, another hatchet force was quickly assembled to act as a quick reaction force for Oscar 8, while any and all aircraft in the area on unrelated missions were redirected over Oscar 8 to keep the battered SOG commandos alive. The North Vietnamese continued to fend off or shoot down any aircraft that tried to exfiltrate the SOG commandos, which prevented the quick reaction force from inserting. The hatchet force held their position inside those two bomb craters for 2 days completely alone. Their close air support was giving them all the help they could, but with the anti-air guns they could only do so much, and they could not drop any more troops in the area to help them out. So they were completely alone in the middle of the enemy headquarters for 2 days. After 2 days of non-stop, extremely close range fighting, they were eventually able to exfiltrate from the area. 23 men from SOG and its supporting air units and about 50 of the indigenous fighters were wounded or killed, went missing, or were captured during the operation. In addition, 2 CH-46 Sea Knight helicopters, 1 UH-1 gunship, 1 H-34 transport chopper, 1 F-4 Phantom jet, and 1 A-1E Sky Raider were shot down. During the fight, one seriously wounded American Sergeant First Class Charles Wilklow was captured by the North Vietnamese, who used him as bait for a rescue force for 4 days. Wilklow not only managed to survive his wounds, but also escaped, getting picked up by a combat search and rescue chopper 5 days after the battle began. Needless to say, Oscar 8 was a huge disaster for SOG. The hatchet force failed to achieve any of the mission's goals, and if it weren't for the sheer will and grit of the commandos and the air crews, it would have been a lot worse. But I think it's very clear to see that this was in no way the fault of the operators or the air crew. The higher-ups were very desperate to capture this general, and so this mission was thrown together incredibly quickly, and even if it was just the absolute perfect plan with months and months to get it dialed in, this was an insanely dangerous mission. But like I said, it could have been a whole lot worse, so thank goodness that those operators fought as hard as they could and were able to get out of there alive. But if you guys want to see the uncensored combat footage that I just can't show on YouTube due to their policies, I'll have a link down to my Patreon down in the description below where you can see all of the uncensored graphic combat footage that I couldn't show on here. And if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely check out the one popping up on screen right now. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy the video. I really appreciate it and it really helps me out. But either way, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and I'll see you in the next one.